welcome to Valentino Park for race number 10 of the 1955 F1 season here in Grand Prix Legends. We're at round 10, it's the final round of the championship, and this one's building up to be a very exciting race after the last two Grand Prix. We're here at Valentino Park, which was not the actual track which hosted the final round, or was supposed to host the final round in the 1955 season. Pedralbes, Spain, was supposed to host that round, and it did host the Grand Prix of the final race of the season in 1954. But for Grand Prix Legends, this track does not exist, and so I've been searching for where I would have this race to round out the season, at least for right now. And I settled here at Valentino Park, the site of the Turin Grand Prix for many years. This is a circuit which was actually raced in 1955, albeit at the very start of the season, even before Monaco. And a classic racetrack from the time, one that had its final Formula One race in 1955, and I think fits. It's not exactly like Pedralbes would have been, but it's a little closer than I think some of the other circuits that people were suspecting me to pick would have been. I think the top of the list, and I did show it in the last video at the end, was Montjuic Park, and that's a great circuit. However, I do not think it fits the 1955 cars. I've done some laps around there in those, and it's not that it's just challenging, but if you look at circuits from the time, they were much more straight lines, sharp corners, and although this circuit, the Valentino Park circuit, is not an exact replica by any means of Pedralbes, it's a little closer in spirit, and because it was also raced in the 50s and before, I think it just goes and fits what we're trying to do here a little bit better. Worst case scenario, I guess I'm simulating that non-championship Grand Prix from earlier in the season. But we're here for the final race, and things couldn't be more interesting. Let's take a quick look at the points and the schedule and everything. So it's round number 10. We fought through a bunch of different Grand Prix over a few real years here to get to this final race, and the championship is looking quite good for myself. Richard Axelson in the first position after 9 rounds, and I've got that win, 2 wins in a row really in the last 2 Grand Prix, at the Swiss Grand Prix and the Italian Grand Prix, to take the lead away from Fangio, who has really led it the whole way. And for those that haven't watched this whole season, the basic gist of the point structure is the top 5 points paying races count for each driver. So it sets up some interesting point scenarios for this final round. I am in the lead by 1 single point. However, if we look at the races earlier this season, both Richard Axelson and Juan Manuel Fangio, we've had pretty good seasons. Overall, Fangio's season is a little bit better, and that's why he's only 1 point behind. However, I have one additional win, I guess you'd call it, where he's got 2 second place finishes counting with the 6 points. You pick up an extra point for fastest lap in the race, and that cannot be discounted. But really, this is going to come down to who wins the Grand Prix. By what I've looked at, and maybe I've done this wrong, but by what I've looked at, Fangio has to win this race in order to win the championship, even though it's this close. He has to get better than the 6 points that he's scoring his second place finishes at the Swiss Grand Prix, and where was that? The British Grand Prix, I guess. Those 2 second place finishes are his drop races, so he has to finish first, whether it's 8 or 9 points. He would win the championship. There's nothing I can do about it. So it's going to be really interesting coming down to it here. Sterling Moss and Alberto Ascari back there, they'll be fighting each other as well for third place within the championship, but it's all set up to be a very interesting race around a really challenging circuit. So let's take a quick look at Valentino Park, which was a Grand Prix circuit. It's from the map here, looks quite mundane, and I would say compared to the tracks we were just racing on, Monza, the Swiss Grand Prix at Bremgarten, a few races back at the Nürburgring, this is not of the same fabric of those classic road circuits. This is a city street track, much more like a Monaco or a Pedralbes. I think. And so this one's going to be testing the brakes and the precision. There's curbing and walls everywhere around here. Really, we'll have to drive a flawless 27 laps, and in order to do something like that, I've got to back off a little bit and take my shots where I can get them. It's a very tight track. There's not really much of an area where it opens up. I think the only opportunity to rest is coming out of this last sharp corner down the straightaway towards the chicane. But the lap itself, I'll talk through it a bunch throughout the race, so I won't drone on and on here. But it's in a park and makes up some really nice twisty roads through a park. And I think it's got basically these two halves, where the first half of the lap is up and down, undulations left and right, some nice crests and hills, get a good flow through there. And then it curves back into city streets, similar to a Pedrablis, where we'll be just flying past hay bales and spectators towards a chicane and then past the finish line. By far, I think this is the most difficult track on brakes. Maybe Monaco is up there for that. It's been a while since we did that race, since I did that race. So thinking back to that, I remember obviously the brakes were a huge issue there. They're going to be a massive issue here. Just after a couple laps, it'll be basically touch and go. And I've learned how to drive most of this circuit without touching the brakes much, but turn one is the place where it is just so difficult to get the car slowed down and around this long double apex right-hander. The chicane right before turn one really murders the brakes, and they don't have a lot of time to recover. I think this map might be showing this area to be a little longer than it actually is. All these corners have fantastic Italian names that I won't be able to pronounce, but getting a look at the track now, it is a really cool Grand Prix circuit, one that was actually updated and released fairly recently for Grand Prix Legends, so happy to show it off here. 22 turn circuit though, we'll be doing 27 laps, which is 70 miles, right on par with the other Grand Prix, and I think this equates to the same distance calculation that we've been doing the rest of the season. Talking about the real Grand Prix very quickly, Alberto Ascari won the race. I cannot find a lot of information about this race other than a very quick one-line review which says he kind of ran away with it and it was quite processional. It was a race where the Ferraris and Lancias and Maseratis were entered and doing well. The Mercedes team didn't enter. This would have been a non-championship race, so it's not one they would have focused on, but very much an Italian race around an Italian street circuit, simulating here the Spanish race for this Grand Prix. We'll take a look then at the starting grid. So this will set a little bit more of the tone and why this championship is very much open. Juan Manuel Fangio has the pole alongside Alberto Ascari and Jose Gonzalez. So Fangio's got to win, and he has a history this season of getting up front and checking out. And his time was very quick. My time itself, during some earlier practice sessions this week, I'll show behind the curtain a little bit, I was able to get into the 148s. Wasn't able to do the same for this qualifying, so I'll be starting on the third row in the 8th position alongside Castellotti, and we have Berra and Moss in front of us. Starting on the outside though, I actually think that's not such a bad place to be around here. So take a quick look then at the car setup. As always, been pretty much consistent after the first couple races this season. We're running 15 gallons of fuel. Wish I could run less, but the car, we need the full 15 gallons to get us to the end of the Grand Prix. And so should be an interesting race. I appreciate the patience and everything with getting through this series. I hope this ends up being an entertaining race. But why don't we get started with the final race of the 1955 season, the Turin Grand Prix. So here we are on the grid in the park, ready to start the final round of the 1955 season. Flag is up, down, we're underway. Just getting bogged down a little bit off the start. Everybody will file into turn one, very tight here, stuck in behind Castellotti. No place to go, maybe get it alongside of him. I think I'm 3 wide with a Mercedes Streamliner. A lot of oversteer there. Oh, and I think the Mercedes might have spun out on the inside. I don't think I was hit, but the car ran really wide. Now gather things together though and head into the park. We'll come sweeping right-hander here down the gearbox. Third, second gear. Everyone driving pretty slow in the opening lap, cold tires. But now through a series of S's up and down, not going to be a place to pass around this section. Come over this little rise here and under a tunnel to the last little rise. Over a little berm. The track will straighten out down the hill. A little bit of a kink, but we'll head to the hairpin. I'm not going to do anything too crazy on this opening lap. Tempting to throw it up the inside, but we'll just roll through this tight section here and settle ourselves onto the fast straightaway city section. Side by side, Castellati is able to get the acceleration out of there a little better than I am. All the way up to 5th gear here. So we'll set our sights on the turn indicators on the inside. Brake heavily for a chicane all the way to 1st gear. So quite the opening lap behind Castellati here. I don't know what happened behind me. Hopefully the melee in turn 1's picked up by now. We'll see, maybe I can throw it up the inside. Ooh, he's blocking a little bit. Just able to clear him. Late braking, but I got brakes right now. Into the 1st corner. Now settled in behind Vera in his Maserati. Famous checkered helmet. The sound of that Maserati, probably my favorite car from the season to drive. Overall, maybe side by side through there, not gonna work. Being very aggressive here, but I don't want Fangio and team to get away from me. Running a little wide there through the first of these switchbacks, through the tunnel again. Very reminiscent of the Monaco tunnel, in my opinion. This is such a cool city circuit. Coming over the top of the hill, maybe get alongside Beira here. Well, he's gonna squeeze me out through the kink. Tempting to outbrake him, but this is so tight down here. I don't know how it'll go. Get on back on the straightaway. Will start heating up now. This is going to become one tricky lap to get through. It just seems like there's not enough opportunity to cool them down. Those straightaways, while fast, are not long enough. So really need to use the engine wherever I can to slow the car down. Back on the gas. Completing another lap, but right in the toe of Beira. Late braking into T1 all the way down to 1st gear. The car gets really torquey in 1st gear, so I'll try not to spin it out. So able to make that pass back. I think I would guess it's Sterling Moss in front of me. I don't think I'll be lucky enough for that to be Fangio. Set our eyes forward. Seems like pull out a little bit there on Beira. Just nudge the car through here. Very light on the throttle just to get the car turned. All the time switching between 2nd and 3rd gear up to 4th now over the hill. Some inroads on the 3 in front at least. I'm worried that I think I'm in 4th position. I'll try to check the pit board this time by, but I'm worried that Fangio is just way up there. I guess I'd be in 5th then. All the way down to 1st. And truly, you have to drive this circuit as if you did not have a brake pedal. There's just no opportunity for them to cool down. Here as I come by the start-finish stretch. So that's P6 last lap with 24 to go, so a long race ahead of us. Just need to remember my brake markers. It's going to be a frustrating watch, I think, because it'll feel like I'm driving very slow, but I swear if I go just slightly deep into a corner, there's no hope of slowing the car down. You can only rev the engine so high, and I'm already going all the way down to first for most corners. This one up here will do second. Should be enough. It's a pretty quick corner. But using all the engine revs, so I barely have to touch that brake pedal. Already in the red. No brakes through here, just second gear, ride the engine a little bit. Back and forth, over the crest, we'll get up to third. Back down to second, no brakes. Cooling them off as much as I can. Coming over the crest and set up for the hairpin. Pretty close to Moss, but not going to try anything funny here. Still early in the race. Twisty street section. Trying to get a good run out. Oh, a lot of oversteer there and almost hit the back of him. Past all the spectators. Spot braking there right before that road that comes in on the right and left, and a long braking zone just to get the car slowed down all the way to first gear. Trying to get a good exit for turn one. A really challenging track. I don't think I've been on a track this challenging since Monaco. A different type of challenge than like a Bremgarten was. Really did spend quite a lot of time practicing basically riding a lap without the brakes. You use them turn one in the hairpin and the chicane, and that's really what you want to keep it limited to if you can. It adds such an interesting element to driving these cars that you don't get in any other mod or really any other sim. I don't know another sim that models brake fade quite like they do here, and I'm not sure if it's entirely realistic. I think everybody is going off of writings from the time, but it is very, very fun and an interesting, unique sim racing challenge to be able to manage the brakes like we can. We're right on Moss now. Ran a little too hot into there. I need to be side by side with him much earlier coming into this hairpin to have a shot at it. Brakes into there just to get the car settled. We'll come up through the gears though. That Mercedes pulling away from me a little bit, and it looks like Gonzalez is right in front of him. Then I'd guess Ascari right at the front there. Lumbering through the chicane. There shouting as the cars go by. Be quite an exciting place and a beautiful place to watch a Grand Prix. Closing in a little bit on Moss, trying to get a good run down into the park as we fly past a hotel, I believe, on the right side, a river on the left side. And these twisty roads, I think, are still here to this day in Valentino Park. Just try to stick in behind Moss, try to keep as close as I can through this section, but he is close to Gonzalez as well. Try to back up this corner, see if I can get a better exit. Miss the apex a little bit. The younger guy being Fangio's teammate. Start braking well before the start-finish line. Make sure we get slowed down. This is the corner that is easiest to run into trouble in. Moss ran a little wide though, right on the back of him now. Try to line up our exit. Get side by side with Moss here. And able to make the pass coming out of T1. So center eyes forward, just try to brake as late as I can up the hill here. Make sure he doesn't have a shot at running back up the inside of me. Use a little bit more of the brake than I would normally, just to make sure I got that pass. And I think it's settled. So, working my way past Moss, now set our eyes on Gonzalez in his blue Ferrari 625. Same car as me, just a different color. And immediately right on the back of him, working the wheel, seesawing, just trying to keep the car pointed in the right direction. All the spectators and hay bales. I love how there was literally nothing stopping a car or between the cars and the spectators. Just some trees here and there. Getting a nice run that time through the chicane. Take a look at my pit board. Still very early on in this race, but falling off the leaders a little bit. 20 laps to go. P5 last time by, up to P4 now with that pass. Riding first gear a bit. And I've developed this interesting driving behavior as might be able to do the same thing here. Gonzalez not getting quite the same run, but getting alongside him. He's gonna have a nice line there. Oh, hope he doesn't squeeze me too close to the curb here. Able to make the pass. I think he gave that one to me. Running a little wide there, but staying away from that rock wall. So, chalk up another position up to P3. 20 laps left. Really have to put some laps in as I can barely see a Ascari, never mind Fangio. There's a Ascari just coming into the hairpin now. Easy to overdo it when you don't have anybody you're following directly to. Really have to know your braking markers. But this circuit is a lot easier to drive alone, I will say that, especially through the park there. I was saying I developed this interesting driving style while learning the circuit without brakes, where I'll shift all the way down to first for some of these corners, like the first corner or this one, and then immediately throw it back into second once I've hit the apex to make sure I can get the speed coming out. Not sure that's how they would have done it or be that aggressive on braking with the engine, but in the sim at least, in order to be fast, you gotta do some pretty wild things. Oh, it's running a little fast there. Gonna tap the curb with the rear. Hopefully the car's okay. That could definitely blow a tire, break suspension. I think I might have got away with it. The wheel feels maybe a little crooked though. So this whole circuit is lined with those curbs, much like Monaco, but it's even more intense than Monaco. The curbs are everywhere and you just can't touch them. Feels a little odd turning to the left, which is not a good thing. heavy braking, downshifting. So, car's definitely hurt a little bit, but I think I can still drive it. In real life, you probably want to retire if the car felt any different at any stage. It's too risky. But we need to win the championship. We're going to stick in it as best as I can. Down to first gear, fly through this fast chicane. Very odd having a chicane on a circuit in these times, but it looks like it's a natural chicane. It's going to go around a house there and into the park. And I think overall this circuit is not exactly like Pedralbes in Spain, but it's pretty close, at least as far as setting and shape of the circuit roughly. I think that circuit is a little more like the end of this one with the city streets. And this section is quite a bit different, but since they did race here in 1955, I thought this would be a cool place to host the round for now. Second, that's definitely a hard corner now that the car is feeling kind of weird. But I'm closing in a little bit on Ascari here, so not all is lost. But I see Fangio nowhere to be found in front of him. All the way down to first gear, really trying not to over rev the car, but want to use all of the engine I can to slow it down. Through the gears nicely, just keeping the car very calm, precise movements. Come past the start-finish straight. The pits at this circuit are so close to the racing line that even during practice, if there was a car in them, you would have to alter your line slightly to make sure you didn't hit it. It'd be quite interesting in real life. The circuit overall looks very close to how this circuit looked just from some of the pictures I've seen. Very well represented within the sim here. So I closed up on Ascari a little bit, but it feels like I might have stalled out, so try to do the best I can. I'm worried the car just lost some of the speed with tapping that curb. Such a simple error. Do have to keep in mind we'll most definitely be hitting some lap traffic during this race, and that should make things interesting if not frightening. Saw Ascari just dip out there as I made my way onto the straightaway. Don't know if you'll be able to see that on the video, but I can still see him just barely. There, Fangio. I can definitely see Ascari. Fangio is the one I want though, and he is far up there. Had to wait a little bit that time to make sure I made it around. Took a look at the pit board again. 16 laps to go, P3, but the podium really doesn't mean much today. I need to get the win. If Fangio's in the lead, I have to get up there. Getting used to how the car is driving now with this crippled right rear suspension, I think. You can see maybe a little bit that the wheel's crooked on the straightaways, which is never a good sign. as best as I can. Still decent speed, but not as quick as I could have been, and I feel like I would need every bit of speed to catch Fangio today. So now you can see the blue on Ascari's helmet here. It over the curb there. That's one curb you can hit, but the only one really. Oh, a car rocking from side to side under braking. Trying to get on the throttle to turn the car a bit, but that corner is definitely more difficult now with the suspension being the way it is. It seems the car has developed quite an understeer at certain speeds. Very long braking zone here, but just kind of ride the engine, barely tapping the brakes. Ascari now. Trying to get a good run over the top of the hill here. Well, just no space to throw it up the inside there. But feeling like I've caught him, so maybe stick as close as I can through this section. Feels like I'm quicker in the park, a little slower on the fast sections here, but able to stick with them all right. Wish I could just outbrake them going into one of these corners, but ain't gonna happen today. Stream past the start finish line, 14 laps to go, so we're just about halfway now. And a pretty eventful first half of the Grand Prix. I knew things around this circuit would not be boring, even if you're driving alone, but we got the run now. See if I can do it in the same place that I've been passing everybody else. Side by side with Ascari. Oh, and he backs out of it. He's gonna let me have it. A little more speed, make sure he doesn't try to come back on me here, but he knows it's halfway through the Grand Prix and I've been catching him for many laps. It's just a matter of time. And that's how they used to race in these days. You would only think about defending if somebody was catching you within a couple laps of the finish, but if it's halfway through a Grand Prix and you're being caught, you're gonna get past or you're gonna have an accident. You cannot afford to have an accident in these days. A little bit of give and take, keep everybody racing. So we'll now try to pull on Ascari and set our sights towards the man I need to beat. Oh, and I see some other cars up there, so lap traffic is gonna come into play. It makes me just as excited as it makes me nervous because I gotta find my way around those cars too. Ascari's right on me now, but hopefully I can keep him behind here coming into turn one and then pull away from him through the park. Oh, just heart sinking as I didn't think I was going to get laps in real life. So catching one of the British cars, and hopefully we'll be able to get by quickly. It's the only way I'm going to catch Fangio. He gets slowed down, I can get past. So we'll come now over the hump here. What lap car going to get out of the way for me? Thank you very much. Forgot they did that sometimes. Come into the city section, make sure he's not going to try anything crazy on me, but yeah, able to make that pass. So first lap car successfully passed, many more to come most likely. I saw Fangio dipping away from me there. I could just see him right at the end of the straightaway. So still with invisible sight, but it'll be interesting to see if I'm catching or losing him. We'll take a look at the pit board this time by and see what the gap is. All kinds of oversteer. While I'm thinking of all these things, I need to also make sure the car actually continues to run. So P2, 9 seconds. That would have been last time by, so we'll see basically a lap delayed every lap, but the pit board guy doesn't know what's happening right now. He only knows what happened last lap. A little bit messy that time through T1. Broke a little later, staring at the pit board there. Right here, you do feel like a racing god, but it's so easy for it to go wrong. So I can see one of the little Italian blue cars there in front of me, or I guess it would be a French car, I'm actually not sure. The one with the clock on the dashboard. I see Fangio there, not sure if I'm catching him. It was 9 seconds last lap. We'll see what it is this time by. If it's less, there's hope. If it's the same, I'm not sure. If it's higher, well, that might be the nail in the coffin. So coming by the start-finish line here, 8 seconds. Oh man, 1 second. So got 11 laps. If I close a second a lap, obviously I can do that. I can catch him if I can close a second a lap and have a little bit of time to try to pass him. Oh, popping it out of gear there. About time I missed a gear. In classic Richard Axelson fashion, old grinder gears himself. Down to 4th gear, down to 3rd, down to 2nd. Giordini here. I hope you let me by in a good spot. Good, sir. And with these twist sections, I don't know. I don't want to try anything too wild. He could decide that he wants to do something like that. Come on, let me by. So I'm able to do it, but I lost a ton of time there. I can see a scar in my mirror again. I didn't hit him, which is the biggest thing, but that is what I want to happen to Fangio and not to me. I think I got another one in front of me there. The AI lap cars, they do try to get out of your way, but as has been the case all season, it's a little erratic as to what lane they're going to pick. Of them, a little bit of a rookie. Oh, running a little too deep. I think I go a little too fast into the second apex there, and I could actually speed up the corner by slowing down a little bit more. Come past the line. Last lap was 7 seconds behind Fangio, so doing what I would need to do to catch him, but I think I lost at least a second on this last lap. But pick it right back up. I can still do it.
Overslip the car. You can obviously spin out by throwing it too sideways. You can also use that to help slow the car down. That's another technique, but there is a limit. Nice run through that corner this time. So maybe catch these two on the city streets, and I saw Fangio there. I am a lot closer than I was a few laps ago. Don't slow down just yet. Now do it. Now let me by. Thank you. Hold your breath a little bit every time I get alongside one of these lapped cars. Fangio got caught up behind these two because I have pulled in a ton, which is good. I thought I was losing time. So now come by the start finish. Van Wall letting me by there. 7 seconds on the lap prior, so that's okay. I didn't really lose anything, didn't gain anything either. And I bet I'm within 6 seconds now. Stuff this. I don't know if it looks like it, but it's not an easy track to race around in these cars. I'd much like to take one of the 65 cars here and have a little fun. I'm not sure this is as much fun as that would be, but it's certainly a challenge. Easier than Montjuic would be, I could tell you that. Ooh, and almost nipping the inside curve. There's a little bit of a ramp there that you could hit going into the tunnel. So come over the top of the hill, maybe get some eyes. There's Fangio just breaking in to the hairpin now. Frustratingly slow sometimes, but it's all about momentum, all about making it to the end. Hopefully hitting more lapped cars soon. Physically hitting them either. Tried a little bit slower of an entry there. Not sure if that's quicker. Exit felt a little better. So coming to the line, 8 laps to go, 5 seconds in front of me. So we've really closed up the gap quite a bit. But we may need a little more help to actually get there. Actually surprised that I was able to catch him with the lap traffic. A lot of times I find in Grand Prix Legends that AI can get through lap traffic somewhat better than I can, just with the AI switching lanes and all that. Ugh, very clumsy this time through, understeering everywhere. Car feels somewhat more broken, but I haven't hit anything. I don't know why that would be. Trying to gather back up, maybe just a couple bad lines there. First gear, through the corner. The corner, all of the beautiful Italian named corners are not in my vocabulary. Oh, and I think I saw a lapped car there in front of Fangio, so still a little bit in here to spice it up. Rocketing out of the chicane. See here what the pit board says. Looking at it almost every lap now. Still 5 seconds, so I didn't really gain anything that last lap. But I didn't lose much either. Fourth, down a third, down a second. I talk myself through the gears almost as much for myself as it is to commentate. Oh, better line this time. Over the top of the hill, just make sure I don't hit any of these curbs. Down a second. I can see one red car ahead. Maybe one of my teammates can wreak a little havoc on Sir Fangio. Oh, and he already got around him. Might be Trinchino there. Cross my fingers things don't end up like they did at Monaco way back when. Slip in the car that time. Very nearly lost it. Seconds on that last lap as well. Just stalling out a little bit here. It was definitely the traffic which got me closer. I would take it though. Anything to catch up to him at this stage. So I can see him right there, eyes on him now through this section of the park. Trinchino in front in the number 8 there. Oh, gonna hold me up a little bit. See if I can make my way around the outside of him here. Just don't want to run wide myself. Get it done in a second. Able to make the pass, but lost a bit of time. More than Fangio did to get by him. Just a tough place to catch a car, even if they're much slower than you. In front of him now though. So we're coming to the end of the race. I think just a few laps left. I need to close it up more if I'm going to have a shot at this. Not only do I have to catch him, I also have to pass him, and he won't be as easy as these lap cars. Let's try to be smooth on the gears. I cannot miss a shift on this circuit. I've already done it once, but got away with it. 5 laps to go then. 5 laps in the whole season. Fangio able to dispatch the first lap car there. Be a Maserati or a Ferrari. Oh, and I think he got stuck a little bit there. Hopefully I'll catch both of these guys on the straightaway. Just make easy work of it. 2 Maseratis, it looks like. about it just yet. Just keep going, keep going. Oh, he's gonna make things weird. We'll sneak around the outside of one. Not sure I'll catch the other one just yet. All right, didn't lose a ton of time, just a little bit. This car either before the first turn. Lap cars will get quicker the further we get in. 4 laps to go. Oh, I'm not able to slow down, not trying to run into him. But sneak around the inside, hopefully not losing too much time. Very late braking there. Fangio able to get around Lancia in front. Serious stuff now. That can't be a Ascari. It's Castellati. Doesn't matter. I need him out of my way is what I need. Spot again through this really slow section. Just not a lot of room to pass. He's going to want me to as well. Just run it wide here into the tight corner onto the straightaway. So not losing too much time, but last 2 laps, both of them having to pass somebody there. Fangio still a little bit of a spec for me. Keep my eyes on the mirrors there. Missed my apex a little bit on the entry. Okay, coming to the line then. 3 laps to go, 4 seconds in it now. So I've lost that magic 2nd per lap. Oh, running too hot, tapping the barriers. Oh, able to still go, I think. That was a hard hit, that one. And that might be it. I think I might be able to continue the car, but it's not feeling good. Hopefully not losing tire pressure. I have to go a little tentative into this one. Don't want to spin out or anything. Still have a 2nd place, but it doesn't matter if I can't win. Let's try to push it a little bit here. Be okay still, but obviously would have lost some time on Fangio there. It's just so easy to do around this circuit. I was able to not do it for 25 laps, but yeah, and the car struggles to turn right now. Still see him. I won't give up. Just a few laps to go. Give it everything I have without going over the edge. Down to 1st gear, just crawling it feels like, but any quicker I would fly into the hay bales. I last time by 5 seconds, so I lost one somewhere, probably behind that Lancia. Get it slowed down plenty this time for T1. It's too bad. The car is still workable somehow, but yeah, lost a little speed. And unless something crazy happens in front of me, I don't know. I don't want to resign it yet. But Fangio is proving to be the champion he was. doing so much there. And it's just so unfortunate to be within sight distance of the championship, but being beaten. The car slowed down. It's just one more lap to go. I can always cross my fingers that Fangio has some kind of issue. One, a lot of reflection. Not sure I could have done things much differently. Obviously, hitting the outside of T1 twice would have certainly been a good thing to avoid, but around a twisty street circuit like this, with cars with almost no brakes, it's a lot to ask. And I think this proves I am not Fangio. First gear, then final time through this little section here and onto the city streets. Understeering a bit there, seeing Fangio just disappear in the distance. One more tricky corner in front of me now. First gear, just tiptoe it through, no worth and risking. So we'll come to the line then. I'll give my fist a little pump. I mean, it's still a second place, but coming so close to victory in the championship. We'll try not to run the car into the wall again, and we do. Still get a break even on the cooling lap. But so close to the win. But Fangio is able to eke it out where it counted. And I had to expect that around a city street track like this, having raced at Monaco and Buenos Aires, first race of the season. Those were tricky races for this car. I had a lot of fun on the fast tracks with Monza and Bremgarten. The Nürburgring was also a hard one. So it seems like this car has a lot of speed in the straight line circuits, or where you don't need to brake much, but under braking it just is such a difficult car to drive, and that Mercedes is a lot easier, I'll tell you for sure. Let Ascari by the real winner of this Grand Prix. We'll do our cool down lap. Overall, I think it was a great season though. Although it didn't end exactly how I wanted it. But feeling pretty satisfied with finishing the full 1955 season, even if this is not the exact venue for where the final race would have been. It was a race track that was raced in the 55 season. And if ever the Spanish Grand Prix track is actually finished, maybe we can revisit history a little bit and see if the outcome is any different on that circuit. But for the Valentino Park circuit, this is how it was. So we'll come through the chicane and we'll put it into the pit stall and after the cool down lap and check out the results of this race. All the spectators gathering there. Find the pit box pretty much on the racing line here. There it is, trying not to blow through it. Somehow the brake's still working up this time. I guess I'm not running fast anymore. Right at the start-finish line. We'll exit out, take a look at the final results. So there it is, Juan Manuel Fangio winning. From myself, Richard Axelson, and Alberto Ascari in third place in his Lancia. Jose Gonzalez and Sterling Moss round out the top 5. We'll look further down the list. A lot of retirements here. Klang, Brooks, Hawthorne, and Taruffi all crashing out potentially. It says accident, so not a mechanical failure. So some big accident must have occurred at some stage here. All right, so let's take a look at the points, and I'm not exactly sure what to do about the points here, and so I just want to step through it. So Juan Manuel Fangio gets 8 points for his win, so we'll give him 8. Richard Axelson, I get 6 points for my second place. Alberto Ascari gets 4 points for his third. Jose Gonzalez gets 3 points for his fourth place, and then Sterling Moss rounds out the points with a 2-point finish for fifth. And then, which we've been doing all season, we assign the 1 point for the fastest lap, which happened to go to myself. I didn't notice that in the immediate results. And so I get the fastest lap of the race, which brings me from 6 to 7 points for my second place finish. And looking at that, that actually ties it up between myself and Fangio for the championship. We both dropped additional races, or an additional race because of this. So I dropped my 6 points from round 4 at the Dutch Grand Prix because that was my lowest points paying. So my 5 are 4 wins and a second place. Pretty good, if I can be honest. And then Fangio, he drops, I believe, another second place 6 points from round 5 at Reims, which leaves him with 4 wins and a second place. But I got a better second place than he did. We both had a few 8-point finishes. I had 2 of those where he got the fastest lap, and I think a fastest lap has come into play here. So we're absolutely tied at 41 points apiece for the championship. So then I'm looking at what actually decides F1 championships if there's a tie. And in reading through, I cannot find any details about what they would have done in 1955. And so I could be very wrong about this. But today, they take a look first at the number of wins you have. So let's look. I won the 3rd round of the season at Spa. I won the 5th round of the season at the French Grand Prix. I won the 8th round of the season at the Swiss Grand Prix. I won the 9th round at Monza. So that's 4 wins for Richard Axelson. Juan Manuel Fangio, he wins the 1st race of the season at Buenos Aires. He won the 4th race of the season at the Dutch Grand Prix. He won the 6th race of the season at the British Grand Prix. And then he won here the round 10, which gives him 4 wins. So we're still tied there, both 4 wins apiece. All right, so then we go to second place finishes. And if we look here, Richard Axelson, 2nd place at I believe round 4 of the championship, which didn't score, and this is where it gets confusing to me. So round 4, the Dutch Grand Prix, I didn't score there because that was a lower finish, but I still finished 2nd, so I would count that. And then here today I finished 2nd, so that's another 2 second place finishes. Let's look at Fangio then. If we look at him, he finished 2nd at round 5 of the French Grand Prix, right behind me, and then he also finished 2nd at round 8. Which was the Swiss Grand Prix. So 2 second place finishes as well, still tied. So then we come to 3rd places, and this is where it falls apart for me. So I don't have any 3rd place finishes. It's very surprising. I thought I would have finished on the podium at some point this year, but it seems like that position was elusive to me. So I get 0 3rd places. If we look at Fangio, he was so consistent. He never finished out of the points all season, and he had 2 3rd place finishes, I believe at round 3, or 2 and 3, or I guess he would have had 3 3rd place finishes. Round 2, he got the fastest lap as well, it looks like. So he wins with 3 3rd place finishes there. So did Fangio win the championship? Do we count the races that are dropped? Do we count the tie based on something else? All of this I do not know. But we'll call it a tie, maybe.
this wasn't the real final Grand Prix, the racetrack that they raced at, so we might have to come back to this one at this point. But a very fun season overall. I had a lot of fun seeing all these different tracks, learning the different drivers and the cars which raced in 1955. And I hope everyone had as much fun watching. So until next time, and let me know what you think, or who you think won this Grand Prix and the championship. So I'll talk to you all later. Thanks for watching.